cruise ships are just one component of what has been historically a very dynamic international tourism marketplace, not just here on the South Island, but indeed right across British Columbia. So the closing of borders, the restriction of international travel until the 22nd of June was a major challenge, or is a major challenge for many tourism operators. With respect to the cruise ship sector, those vessels that would have been landing in Victoria or Vancouver, up the North Island and on to Prince Rupert, I think the market will decide what the future of the cruise ship industry is in British Columbia and Alaska. You will know, Vaughn, that as we've gone through this slowdown in the economy, and as we all around the world try to manage the impacts of COVID-19, we've seen many outbreaks on cruise ships. I think that the industry's taken a bit of a black eye through this period, and I don't know how many people are lining up to get on cruise ships in the first place. I know I had a friend who works on a cruise ship, and she was floating around in the South Pacific for a month and a half with no port to land in. So there are issues to be resolved on the cruise ship side. But your point is, what are we going to do to backfill for those many hundreds of thousands of travelers who have come to British Columbia year after year to enjoy the many attractions, the many opportunities, whether they be ecotourism opportunities or mainstays like the Butchart Gardens here in Victoria. It's going to be a challenging period. Business understands that. We've been working with the federal government to make sure that our border issues are consistent with the need for public health, but also looking to things like family reunification as the beginning of the softening of the border as we see positive numbers with respect to new cases, only 4 yesterday. That's not to say we're going to continue to have single-digit numbers. That's going to change and go up and down in the days and weeks ahead. But the data looks promising, and so we're reaching out to providers. Minister Lisa Baer has been holding stakeholder conversations regularly for the past month and a half, and we've been pushing all of that information back to the federal government so that we can have a response that helps sustain many of the businesses that have been the foundation of our tourism economy for decades. Well, Dr. Henry's been pretty clear on that, not just this recent overture, but over the past month or so, there has been a lot of talk about why don't you have a regional approach? And she's been pretty categorical that the virus is everywhere in British Columbia. There is not one part of the province that is less susceptible to outbreak if we don't follow the directions that have been laid out by public health officials. And we have opened up our campsites June the 1st. There are people camping. They're going to see more and more travel throughout the summer as we get towards phase 3. And we'll see tourism, domestic tourism, I think, pick up and in fact break records as British Columbians stay home and enjoy the beauty and the splendors of every corner of the province. International travel is going to be a challenge, and we need to get our heads around that. Industry needs to get their heads around that, and having different rules in the north or on the island or in the Kootenays is not going to change the fact that cruise ships aren't going to be landing in British Columbia until at least October. It's not going to change the fact that international travel restrictions are going to keep people away from British Columbia, whether it's the north, the Kootenays, or the island. So a regional strategy just doesn't work when it comes to international tourism. And as for domestic tourism, we're going to do everything we can with an aggressive promotion campaign in the days ahead to encourage people to visit every part of BC if they've got the time to do so. Well, I would, if people want to book arrangements at their favorite place in BC, you certainly can do that now. But there's no guarantee you'll be able to get there. We need to follow this very closely. We have had success in BC because people have done this together. And although I absolutely understand that people are going to want to go and move around, and I absolutely understand that tourism operators want to see that happen, but it wasn't that long ago that leaders in tourism-dependent communities were saying stay home. So we can't lose sight of the road we've traveled. We've all worked really hard to get here, and we can't just flick a switch and get back to normal. It has to be gradual. We have a plan. We expect that the incubation period from phase 1 is into its second incubation period. The numbers have been very low. I would expect in the middle of June we're going to be looking at further easing of restrictions and starting into phase 3 or stage 3 of the restart. But I don't want to give people false hope. Anything could happen. This is a dynamic virus that has affected different parts of the world differently, and we're in good shape today because of the collective efforts of British Columbians. They need to hold the course until we can safely say it's time to move around.